Hey BookTube, Chelsea the Reading Outlaw here to do the best of 2018 traditionally published fiction. There will be another video coming up the next time I post that is the best fan fiction that I read in 2018, because boy howdy did I read a fuck ton of fan fiction, you guys. But before we get to that, we are going to start going through. These are mostly in order for basically just how I read them through the year. I just went back to the beginning of my Goodreads challenge and started scrolling through to pick out favorites. The exception being there are 3 authors that I'm going to recommend to you guys. I guess they're considered cheats, but like it's my list, so it's my rules. So the 3 authors that I'm going to recommend to you are basically authors for whom I read like almost everything they've written or a great chunk of their backlist this year. The first one is Tessa Dare. I fell into the Spindle Cove series back in like, I think February, March, and like I read all, I think there are like 8 novellas or 8 novels and like 5 novellas in that series. There's a crazy amount of books. I read them all in like 3 months on audio. Loved it. Fucking loved it. I have since gone on to read like everything that Tessa has written. Every time she's got a new book coming out, I am hitting the button so fast to get that arc because I just fucking love everything she writes. She writes amazing heroines. She writes amazing female friendships, and all of her side characters are really well developed. They're usually pretty hilarious. They're fucking fantastic. The next author is Alicia Rai. The 3 books of hers that I read this year that I have written down in my notebook because I don't remember anything. Hate to Want You, Wrong to Need You, and Hurt to Love You were just like ripped my heart out and put it on a platter and then jumped up and down on it with every single book. You guys know that I really like angst. I feel my books very deeply. I feel most things pretty intensely on both ends of the spectrum, and these books are just so fantastic. The second book has an absolutely fantastic bisexual female main character, and you guys, I'm completely here for bi rep. I'm always on the lookout for great bi representation. So just super fantastic. I just love everything that she writes, and I'm super looking forward to everything that she has coming out next year and in all the years after that. And then the last author that I'm just going to recommend everything to you for is Sebastian. Sebastian writes male historical like regencies. The one that I just finished by her, the most recent one that she had come out, was called It Takes Two to Tumble, which is basically a male retelling of The Sound of Music, and it's so good. I like melted through the floor. I read it all in a single day and did not even regret it when I was a walking zombie the next day. I also I read twice The Lawrence Brown Affair this year. That's one of the books in her Turner series. There are 3 books in that series. I think 3, maybe 4. Everything I talk about will be linked down below, but I read The Lawrence Brown Affair twice. It's so good. It's absolutely fantastic. It's about a quote unquote mad scientist who is kind of a recluse and the grifter con man who comes to serve as his assistant. But of course, it's also about so much more than that. And it touches on mental illness and trust and fragility and reputation and all of these things. And I love them so much and they're so good. So those are the authors I want to recommend you. There's lots of titles associated with that. But then moving through the actual individual titles, the first one was Burn Baby Burn by Meg Medina. This is a young adult novel that's set in New York City in the 70s during the summer of Sam serial killers, with a main character who looks suspiciously like the kinds of girls that the son of Sam is abducting. And oh my God, you guys, this book is like summer in a package. It is heat and tension and fire and stress and all of these amazing things. Meg Medina writes such beautiful prose and such compact prose. I really recommend it. It's still stuck with me, and I read it last January of 2017. It was one of the first books I read, and it's just super great, and it's got a really pretty cover design. Of course, I'll put the covers up here. I don't have any of these books because I just read all my books digitally now, so joke's on all of us, I guess. The next book is a nonfiction book. It's Searching for Sunday, Loving, Leaving, and Finding the Church by Sarah Held Evans. This is a book that really spoke to me as a person of faith who is always questioning and has always been kind of a doubting Thomas. This looks at the way that church and church structures and kind of the outside societal influences on the church have driven away a lot of people, and what Sarah Held Evans believed the church can do to kind of draw back parishioners, to draw back new parishioners, to keep the spirit of the church alive in a context when there's a lot of secular evil and secular influences that are infiltrating these houses of worship. The next book I read was Roses and Rot by Kat Howard. This is a fairy book that's sci-fi meets lit fic, and oh my God, you guys, the prose in this book is like, it's candy. It's so gorgeous. You know me, I'm like kind of borderline on fae stuff, although you wouldn't know it from the 2 fae books that are on this list this year. But that's not like normally my jam. But Kat Howard does something with the way she works these 2 sisters and this writing retreat and this forest setting in with the fae and the way she's doing creativity that's just like, it's so good, you guys. It's fucking delicious. I have it on good authority that it's also really good on audio, but I have not listened to it. So if you have, let me know down below, because I'm always looking for audiobooks as well. The next book is White Tears by Hari Kunzru. I've talked to so many people about this book, you guys, because this book is fucking bananas. I don't even have more words for it. Did you like just see my brain short out? Because I don't know how else to talk about this book. It is a ghost story, and it's terrifying as shit, but it's also about race and music and cultural appropriation and money and the economic divide. And it's just, I listened to it on audio. I had to listen to it twice. It starts crazy and then just gets so like crazier. It goes to just, no words, obviously, no words. But pick it up, stick with it. Please come talk to me about this book. Come find me on Twitter. Come talk to me about this book. I've already talked to my friend Jenny about this book a lot because this book is batshit, but like, please come talk to me about this book. The next book on the list is another fairy book. I know that at least Kirsty and Marines are rolling their eyes so hard right now. Sorry, ladies. It is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. And like, before you come at me, I know. This series is problematic. This series has things that we can definitely talk about in terms of the way it writes certain characters and certain storylines and certain scenes. But I did not have a more fun reading experience this year than reading these 3 books. It has been a long, long time since I have gotten so invested in a book that I have a physical reaction with the book when I finish it. And when I finished the second book, I threw it across the room. I threw it across the room so hard, I actually broke one of my Funko Pop figures, and it made me really sad. That's a different story. But that's the intensity with which I read these books, and to me, that is a lasting experience that I will remember in 2017. So that book, because of this, has earned a place on the list. After that comes, let's see. Okay, after that, I had a really bum year. I finished A Court of Mist and Fury in, I think it was like June, and then didn't get another favorite book until October. So like, that's a big chunk of the year that I just was not reading a lot of super great books, which is indicative of a lot of things that happened in 2017 that you will have heard me talk about in my last kind of like catch-up video. I went through like a career change. I went through some personal stuff. My husband got a different job. All these gears were kind of shifting. But the next book I read was kind of the first book that I picked up again after all of that happened, and I kind of took a reading pause. And it was Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. I have talked to so many people about this book. I had at least 3 or 4 people pick it up after I raved about it on Twitter. This book is about fandom and fan creators and fan consumers and mental health and living your life online, all of which are things that I'm super interested and pretty deeply invested in. I also thought that this book did a fantastic job of writing in a young adult voice and of characterizing and capturing all varieties of its young adult narrators super well. This book had really great, the parents in this book had a really vested role. They made a lot of mistakes and they weren't necessarily the best parents, but they were there and they were trying. And that's not always something we see in young adult. And it's something I'm always on the lookout for because it's really important to have all sorts of family dynamics portrayed in young adult. So I'm always here for a bigger parenting role in those books. And then the last book on this list is a book that I just finished listening to for the second time on audio, and it's The Radium Girls by Kate Moore. It's a nonfiction book about the women who worked in radium dial factories back when we used to use radium to paint glow-in-the-dark numbers on like watch dials and plane dials and different kind of like mechanical parts. And these women would lick the like basically dip a brush in radium and then lick it to get a fine point, thus ingesting the radium. If you didn't know, radium causes super bad cancer. It's like extra not good for you. Spoiler alert, it's a radioactive substance. So this is a book that's all about how we kind of discover that and the horrible medical and like emotional and physical trials that these women had to go through because of their work with the radium, which led to a lot of different like labor lawsuits and advancement in labor law. So it's this really great nonfiction look at like the history of science, the history of women in science, the history of labor law and labor field as it relates to like on-the-job injury. It will make you really mad, but it will also educate you and teach you a lot of things that like I sure as fuck didn't know. So those I think are, yes, those are all of the best traditionally published books that I read in 2017. I will be back with the fic that I read in the next video. Let me know down below what some of the best books that you read are. These are some of my favorite videos to watch. I've been trying to watch as many as I can and leaving comments. So let me know down below. Of course, like, subscribe, hit that bell button thing that has appeared since I was here 7 months ago. But come find me on the internet to talk books, friends. All right, take care of yourselves.